What's going on, everybody? Gonna break down some playoff hoops. We're here early morning. Glock's got the shades on, out celebrating the Mavs win last night. Was that the game? How you doing this morning, Glock?
Oh, doing good, man. A little too early for me, like I said. That's why I got the shades on. But obviously happy with the Mavs win. They're looking good, man. I think Luca really hasn't played up to his potential, in my opinion. So it feels good to have a 2-1 lead. I think probably game 4 he comes out and show him who's daddy, and maybe they win by 20. And he actually shoots well. Yeah, he really hasn't shot well. So feeling good about the series, and yeah, excited to break down this 4-gamer with you. It's been a while, I think, since we've been on together. So I'm excited to break down these games with you, and especially since we have your Lakers on the late game tonight, and looks like
Okay,
Big T is in the looks
I'm
like
not
Big T's
excited
in
to
the
talk
chat.
about
So excited to
that.
break it down with you.
Yeah, I bet Big T on the series last year. I did not slide in for any bets this time around.
What
I
were the
think
what
definitely.
would the odds be on a double sweep? You know what I mean?
Uh, I mean, it'll be another competitive sweep. They've led by double digits for at one point for every single game. And I saw Malone had some comments at one point that he hasn't even had to use any of his adjustments. Like he's just basically going against a middle school coach, and Darvin Ham just sitting there with his fucking hands in his pockets, not doing anything.
Yeah, it sucks because like last year, at least they had the Schroeder card where you could kind of actually bench D'Lo. This year, I feel like, you have Gabe Vincent, but I don't think he's anywhere near like the Dennis Schroeder type. And yeah, I
He's not in
mean,
rhythm right now either, just shooting
yeah,
wise. When he's been out there, I think effort wise and his defense has been good. Like when he's been out there, I think he's looked way better than Dinwiddie. I mean, I would much rather see Gabe out there for like 30 minutes than than Dinwiddie or D'Lo at this point.
yeah. What's crazy is like Dinwiddie. He's been a good playoff producer, at least when he was on the Mavs. It's just I think defensively he lacks. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. We'll obviously talk about it later, but we'll see if they have any cards to pull when it comes to adjustments. I have my doubts, but curious on your thoughts on that. And obviously, that's the last game of the slate, so could be
Yeah,
interesting.
we'll get to that game, but I've got a lot of doubts too. I'm not positive about my Lakers tonight.
Matt Rude, do I have Bell's palsy? I do not have Bell's palsy. I'm good. I'm good on both sides. I'm not Joel Embiid. Like I said, watched the Mavs last night. It's a little early for me, so just got the shades on, baby.
Uh, oh man, fuck! Embiid should have gotten ejected. That was pitiful. That game.
Yeah, man, that was some definitely weird and dirty-ish borderline plays, and he's done it
Borderline
before in the
heavy.
past. So
He should have been ejected 100%. I mean, Mitchell has been dealing with like an ankle injury too. Like he could have actually really gotten hurt there.
yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate for sure, but at least the Knicks are still up, and I still think they have a nice hold on the series. So we'll see how Game 4 goes.
Yeah, we'll be rooting for the Knicks. So with that, we'll get into the games. It's probably one of the last slates that we have 4 games on there, so we'll enjoy it while it lasts. So first game we'll get into. Before we break down the game, guys, hit the like button. We're up early breaking down some hoops. So make sure you guys hit that like button. I don't know if we've got a like number in mind, but just get us to a good amount of likes, and we'll get the place of the day at the end. So with that, we'll get into the first game. It's going to be the 1 p.m. Eastern game. Cavs are up 2-1 on the series. Magic smoked them last time out. Orlando's 2.5-point favorites at home. I've got a 1.5 total in this game. Last game we saw Wendell Carter Jr. move into the starting lineup. So, I mean, I think we've got to pay attention to the starters on the Magic side of things. Considering the outcome of the game, I would assume they start Wendell Carter Jr. again. But the Magic Bigs rotation's a bit of a mess. We'll start with. How about we start with the home team in this one? Let's break down the Magic first, Glock. What are your thoughts on the Magic, and do you think Wendell Carter Jr. starts again in this one?
Yeah, so the first 2 games, it felt like the Cavs obviously were at home, and watching the games, it felt like they had control for most of it. And, we didn't really know what to expect from the Orlando side because the first 2 games looked just so easily in favor of Cleveland. But obviously, game 3, Orlando at home, blew them out basically 121-83. I was quite shocked. And you mentioned it. One of the main adjustments they made was bringing Jonathan Isaac to the bench and then starting Wendell Carter Jr. Obviously, for a DFS perspective, Wendell Carter Jr. has not been that great to us, especially on that slate where he started. But he was the positive is he was on pace for over 30 minutes. He didn't get any fourth quarter run, and is only 4.3 Ks. So I tend to think they could go back to him again. I mean, I think defensively, it's kind of weird to say because Jonathan Isaac is an amazing defender, but I just think Wendell Carter Jr. has more of like that big body to deal with Jared Allen, who crushed them the first 2 games. So Wendell Carter for sure, I think is going to start again. And I think he's going to be in line for 30 plus minutes in a close game. And at 4.3K, I think he's cheaper than he was last game. He's always like a never fun click, but he's a starter. He's 4.3K. He's going to play over 30 minutes. I think you're going to have to consider him for sure. And, obviously Paolo Banchero was the big story from game 3. What did he have? He was like a plus 19 overall. Put up 34 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists in 29 minutes. He really just smashed. So obviously, I think he's my favorite Orlando play. And then behind that, I think you can always consider Franz Wagner. He has been kind of okay as of late, and I think I prefer Paolo if you can spend up. But obviously, those two are the head of the snake for me. And then Jalen Suggs is a guy that we've been playing on these playoff slates where his price tag isn't too restrictive, and he's going to play those 30 plus minutes, and you just hope that it can get you like around 30 or more, and obviously he can do that. So I think those 3 would be my favorite when it comes to Orlando. And then obviously you have your value roulette where Wendell Carter will start, and then obviously if you think you want to fade him, then Mo Wagner is a great pivot. And yeah, I think those 2 mainly would be the value plays for me that are in play: Wendell Carter and Mo Wagner, and then the 3 starters in Paolo, Franz, and Jalen Suggs. And I'd rank it in that order. So I know this game isn't sexy like when it comes to a total perspective, but pricing wise, some of these are the best plays on the slate, at least based on my projections that I have early on. So yeah, that's kind of how I'd rank it.
Yeah, in general, I'm with you. Orlando's not a team that I like from like a rotation perspective. They consistently play 10 guys, and it's roulette. I know it was a blowout, and we had a lot of guys just getting garbage run last game out, but even before that, they ran 10 guys, and even with the blowout, they managed to play 14 dudes with the blowout, like emptied the bench entirely. So yeah, the only 2 guys that I feel or 3 guys, I guess. Suggs, I feel consistent with. His minutes are very much safe. They're not mixing in Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz as much at this point. But Suggs, Franz, and Banchero. Banchero are the only 3 guys that I feel feel very good about their role, and they're all priced to your point, like pretty advantageously. I mean, I don't think that Powell is going to put up a 60 piece in 3 quarters again today, but he's at 8,300. It's a nice price tag on DK. I think I prefer some of the other studs a little bit later as far as guys that I want to prioritize, but all 3 of those guys look good. I think on a point per dollar basis, I'm just more likely to get to Suggs just because of his price tag. Like I want to play potentially the Lakers or the Nuggets studs and on the slate. We've got the OKC Pels guys. The Celtics studs don't look quite as good, but we'll get to that game. So I'm with you. And then I would say if you're using an opto for this slate, I'd say max 2 of Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, and Mo Wagner is a good rule. Like I don't want to play all 3 of those guys, but I could definitely see 2 of them getting there. Similar to you, Wendell Carter Jr. at this price tag, I expect him to start again if I'm going to get 20 plus minutes from him. Like he's a decent fantasy point per minute guy. And, if he falls into 20, 25 DK points, cheap center, I mean, it helps quite a bit. So I like Carter. I think Isaac and Wagner, though, they look to be, at least what I'm seeing in Sabre ownership wise, maybe this will change since we're, doing this a little bit earlier in the day. They could creep up a little bit in ownership, but again, it's only a 4-game slate, and I think there's upside with those guys being low owned, and obviously they need size against the Cavs. So I think those guys are interesting, but I definitely only want to play two of them max. Wendell Carter looks the best, and obviously the rest of the field thinks that he's going to be popular for good reason. And I'm not touching the rest of the Magic. I know Gary Harris looks like he might get a little bit of love, and he had one big game in this series, but Gary Harris is just the ultimate triple condom play. Like if you get the random night where I think he's like 28% owned, and he went for like 30 points a few days ago. All right, if you want to try and go for that, good luck. Gary Harris is terrible for DFS. I'm not touching Gary Harris unless you're MMEing.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for sure because I feel like he went off. He went off for sure. And yeah, I don't think I'm gonna chase it either. I think like when it comes to Orlando, it's like three guys are guaranteed to close, right? Paolo, Franz, and Suggs. And then
Yeah.
really, you were mentioning it, their wide rotation. It's just like, whoever's playing the best off their bench or starting, right? So it's like if Wendell Carter starts and he starts off well and is playing well, he's obviously going to close. But, what if Mo Wagner comes in, like he could ease and plays well, he could easily close over Wendell Carter. Same with Jonathan Isaac. You know, same with Cole Anthony, right? So I don't think I want to get too crazy into this game. Obviously, we haven't talked the Cavs side yet, but yeah, I think we're pretty much on the same page on Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, if Gary Harris beats me, Gary Harris beats me. I can live with that. And I mean, the other thing with Mo,
Mo
his
Wagner.
his plus minus has just been really good all series too. You have to sometimes think what like the coach notices that kind of thing. So even if the DFS production hasn't been as good, again, if he's going to be like 5% or sub 5% owned, like I don't think he's really any different of a play than he's been the rest of the series. And at times he's been 40+% owned. So I think he makes a lot of sense at low ownership as a value.
Yeah, I know you mentioned Max too of Wagner, or Wagner, however Big T wants me to
Wagner.
say it. Wagner,
Yeah.
Wendell Carter, and Isaac. I'm seeing like on top optos right now, Wagner and Wendell Carter paired together. I know last slate it was kind of a popular pairing, at least from an RPS perspective, where you could jam in 48 minutes of potentially a center position. Um, well, what are your thoughts on a max one of that, or would you be okay playing with them together?
It depends how many lineups I have. Like, I don't think it correlates the best, but they're so cheap. And especially if you're MMEing or playing like 20 plus lineups, like I could still see it getting there, just because it helps you jam in potentially like Jokic and Murray, and then maybe one other spend up or something like that. So I think it's viable in large field stuff, but with the caveat, I don't think it correlates the best.
Yeah, I'm looking at last game, and unless my eyes are off, which could potentially be the case since it's early, they didn't play together at all. And I'm talking Wendell Carter and Mo Wagner. Wagner and Isaac played together, but it looks like Mo was a direct sub for Wendell, at least from last game. So that's just something to keep in mind when building out your lineups today.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the big thing is Jonathan Isaac's an awesome defender, and he can get up there. Some of the blocks that he's had even in just like the playoffs and stuff, like he can get up there. But I mean, the twin towers for the Cavs are just big. I think the Magic have seen, and as soon as they went to a bigger lineup, they won big too. So like why are they like I don't see any reason they're going to change it up. I mean, you're probably going to get 48 minutes or so from Mo and Wendell Carter Jr. They don't correlate the best, but they're both cheap, and Mo's power forward eligible.
Yeah, and even though they don't overlap, like Mo Wagner is like he's a high enough fantasy point per minute producer where he could easily pay off his tag, 3.9 in one stint, like one rotation. So
Oh, 100%.
um,
He could
I'm
hit
just kind of
three.
pointing out that they didn't have any overlap, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't play them together. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, if this were a regular season slate, I would definitely say max one. But considering it's the playoffs, I think you can still consider it if you're 20 maxing your MMEing or throwing a bunch of lamps in. All right, let's go to the Cavs side then. I don't think the Cavs side looks quite as good as the Magic, just based on price tags. I'll let you break it down first, and I'll give my thoughts. But I don't know. Do you agree with me? I'm not as interested in the Cavs side as I am the Magic side.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's crazy because like you look at Donnie Mitch's price, 8.4K, and I feel like if this were the regular season, like 8.4K for Donnie Mitch feels like really low tag, and he'd
Yeah,
be slammed.
100%.
But just the way he's been playing, I guess hasn't been that great, and the way Orlando plays defensively is hindering his projection. And yeah, I tend to agree with you here. It's kind of crazy because looking at like early ownership, like it looks like each of these starters are going to be at least 10+% owned. Like I'm seeing 20-ish% owned on Evan Mobley. And I'm not sure how much I want to commit to that, especially I feel like this series, it's been a Jared Allen series. Obviously they did the Wendell Carter adjustment to kind of help with that, but it's felt like Jared Allen has smashed the series while Evan Mobley is kind of taking a little back seat. So when in terms of committing to like multiple pieces from this game, I don't think that I'm going to be too into it. I think there are better spots later on in the slate, and then I do prefer the Orlando side more. So I'm kind of with you there, where Cleveland looks a little less enticing for sure. And so, but if I were to rank it, I think I would rank Donnie Mitch first. I think he has that upside, obviously, to break the slate. He can go for 40 plus raw, and with that, that's really all you need at his tag. I'll go against the projections, and I'll rank Jared Allen over Evan Mobley. Kind of more like an eye test thing for me. And like I said, I know they started Wendell Carter Jr., but I just think Jared Allen's looked better. And then right under Allen, I'd rank it Mobley and then Darius Garland. And then unlike Orlando side, I won't have any interest in like the secondary guys. No Max Struss for me, no Karis LeVert, Niang, Okoro Merrill. Those guys that will not be in my pool. And I'll just focus on the Cleveland starters if playing anything.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got similar thoughts too. I mean, I think this is a better series for Allen. The thing is, Mobley having power forward eligibility and being a slight bit cheaper makes them pretty even in my book. But I'd lean with you, a slight lean on Allen over Mobley. But the bigs are the two main guys that I want to target. Mitchell, obviously, at 8.4, it's a cheap price tag for him, but Orlando's just a good defensive team. I mean, the total in this game 201. It's a very low total. I mean, I know we got more condensed rotations with it being the playoffs, but it's a tough matchup. But I'll say it again. I mentioned it in the playbook last time the Cavs were on the slate, but shooting guard continues to be one of the weaker positions night to night in the playoffs. So Mitchell definitely has the ability, more so than anyone else at the shooting guard position, to separate, where if he drops a 60 bomb type of thing, and potentially a lot of the other shooting guards have, mediocre or bad games, you could really separate at that position. So like, I think he's interesting from a tournament perspective in that way. And Garland, I mean, the price tag's tempting, but he just has not been, even dating back to the end of the regular season, he's just not been super aggressive. Maybe it's because that Utah game stands out in my mind, where he took like one shot in the first quarter, had a bunch of overs on him because I got some stale lines.
Yeah,
with
we were
Donnie
both
Mitch
on him
being
there.
out.
We were both on him
So
there for sure.
it was a generational wealth opportunity on pick 6, and Garland just decided not to shoot against the Jazz. I think the Cavs had like 46 points in the first quarter. Garland had 0 points and like a shot attempt or two. So he's just not been super aggressive and hasn't been shooting super well. So like, I just feel like something's kind of off with him on the offensive side of the ball. So the price tag's tempting, but I'm not super interested in Garland. Like you, I'm not super interested in Struss. Magic's good on the perimeter. And the other thing too, just being a role player, I typically like jump shooters that are role players. I tend to want to fade them on the road and want to play them at home. Like they just shoot better in the playoffs at home. It's a different atmosphere and environment. So I don't think it's a great spot for Struss. I'd keep him in my pool if I'm MMEing, but I don't think I'd get to him in 20 max even. And I mean, I think LeVert had an okay game last time. Shooting guard is a little bit better today than some other slates. So I think LeVert's not great. He's like an MME only kind of guy. So I don't know. It's mainly the bigs and Donnie Mitchell for the Cavs for me.
Yeah, you mentioned it. What's the adage? Like, the role players generally get cooking at home, while on the road that they tend to struggle or not play like themselves. I mean, clear, obvious example last night was a Mavs game, right? Like you saw Daniel Gafford, like the dude could literally not hit a dunk or a layup in games 1 and 2, and looked like himself finally last night at home. So, yeah, I mean, I think the projections tend to agree. Like if you look at them, not really many secondary Cavs guys are popping at all. while on the opposite side of Orlando, you're getting some Mo Wagner as value. And Jonathan Isaac is sprinkled in there, Wendell Carter Jr. obviously as well. So yeah, definitely hand in hand with you for this game for sure.
All right, perfect. We'll keep it rolling. Then next game, we're going to break down Thunder at the Pels. This one, OKC is 1.5 point favorites on the road, 209.5 total in this one. No injuries on the OKC side, and obviously Zion remains out for the Pelicans. I think it's real. I think they said it's realistic he could return this postseason if they advance, but TBD if they're able to advance. I could see this series going 6 or 7 games, though. I mean, I could see the Pels taking a couple at home. We'll start with the Thunder side of things. What are your thoughts on fraudulent MVP candidate SGA and the OKC Thunder?
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's a super interesting series for me. I think before I break down the OKC side, I think from a high level perspective, it's super interesting because I feel like Joe Val, he really can get whatever he wants. Obviously, up against Chet as a big man, can just body him down low and just score, however he wants. But it seems like OKC is fine with that, like just letting him eat, and then because OKC can just win everywhere else, right, and just run him off the court. They're okay giving Joe Val his 18 and 10, and then just winning the game overall. So I know the Thunder. So game 1 was super close, and then game 2 was a blowout. So going home, I think New Orleans, I still think they follow a similar game plan as they have been, right? Trying to, establish dominance down low with Joe Val. And then just see how it goes, right? Just chalk up game 2 as an outlier and then follow the similar game plan where, they use their size with Joe Val and try to, establish themselves. I think that's what they're going to do. I know you can use some game theory and be fade Joe Val and then play some Larry Nance. I know Larry Nance has been a popular value play so far in the playoffs, and I totally get that. But Vegas, I think it's only a 1 spread, so Vegas thinks this game is going to be closer than probably the most anticipate. So I think from a OKC perspective, it's always pretty easy. Obviously you have SGA as a spend up, and then you have Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren in the mid tier. I know Mangone has been tweeting about it here and there, but he's saying this is Chet Holmgren slate. And obviously I think whether or not OKC wins by a lot or by a little is based on Chet Holmgren's play, because he's going to be the guy that's pulling Joe Val out of the paint, spreading the floor. Obviously, he shot really well last game in Smash. So can he do that again on the road? We'll see. But I think from a plays perspective from OKC, I think those are the 3 clear plays. I'd probably rank it Jalen Williams, Chet, and then SGA. I think when it comes to a spend-up perspective, SGA is fine, obviously. I feel like he's a lock to get you 50. But can he get you that 60, right? Which will really separate you. And when you have this slate tonight where you have guys like Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, guys that are just going to play massive, massive minutes because it's an elimination game, I think I prefer those type of spend ups over SGA. So that's why I would rank, J-Dub and Chet over him in the mid tier as well. So you don't have to spend too much money early on in the slate. So I'd rank it J-Dub, Chet, and then SGA. And then in regards to the secondary guys, not much interest here, I don't think. Obviously 3.4K Isaiah Joe, I'm sure you'll have him in the pool, can come off the bench and get hot and then smash.
Every slate's an Isaiah Joe slate. I love Isaiah Joe.
I think he'd be my favorite secondary guy on OKC, but I think I'm more focused here on the big 3 dogs that they have, mainly in the mid-tier place. So yeah.
I'm with you. I'd rank the main guys for OKC in the same order on a point per dollar basis. J-Dub's definitely my favorite guy for the Thunder. The Pels got Herb Jones, and Herb Jones has just been really good at deleting a lot of lead guards, or at the very least limiting them. And I don't think he's going to completely shut SGA down, but I have a harder time seeing the 60-plus point games. The price tag is definitely tempting, where SGA is obviously still in play even with the tougher matchup against Herb, but it definitely it's a downgrade for me. I'd rather play J-Dub or Chet in the mid tier. And I don't mind keeping Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace, who I feel better about the floor of minutes at least, even if he's not as effective as a fantasy producer. So I mean, yeah, but it's tough to get to these OKC secondary pieces, and I like Joe better at home. I mean, he could still get hot from anywhere, but it's just tougher to want to play these secondary guys on the road. So, not much else to add to the OKC. It's really just the main three guys that I want to target. I'm not super interested in anything else. So, all right, let's flip over to the Pels side of things. I know you mentioned it a little bit, but what are your thoughts on the Pels? And you think it's another Jovel spot? And he's going to play. I mean, he only played 23 minutes last time. I'll wait to give my thoughts on this one, but I'm definitely not on Jovel tonight.
Yeah, it was. I think it was more game script related, but obviously, I think in a close game they'll try to ride him, especially at home, especially for this game. Obviously, if they go down 0-3, then I think they could really switch things up. But as long as Jovel starts off strong like he did in game one, I think he has the potential to play, a nice allotment of minutes where he could easily pay off 6K. Um, Obviously, if not, I think the easy pivot is Larry Nance. So if you're not playing a guy like Joval, Larry Nance just seems like a great pivot, especially looks like right now he'll be at least half the ownership. So, yeah, it's funny because the first two games we're on the second game, but the first game we broke down, it's like, road main guys that are starting you like, and then, you like obviously the home main guys, and then there's secondary home pieces that you like as well. And it's the same here, right? Obviously the Pelicans don't have Zion Williamson, so CJ McCollum projects really well at his tag. Brandon Ingram projects really well. Trey Murphy is a guy that, we've been playing a ton this playoffs as well, just because of Zion's injury situation. So I think when it comes to a Pelicans perspective, those three would be my favorite. And I'd rank it CJ, BI, but it's like razor thin margins. I think it's coin flip on those two basically. And just because Ingram is shooting guard eligible, like you mentioned, it feels kind of weak. I think I give the edge to Brandon Ingram actually. And then Trey Murphy right behind them. So Ingram, CJ, Trey Murphy would be my favorites. And then, like I said, just depending on the game script that you think happens, Joval would be following right behind it. And then Herb Jones can always be like that filler guy. Obviously, he has a wide range of outcomes, and he's more of a good real life basketball player than he is DFS. But he can easily get there if he knocks down open threes, get some boards, some stocks. 5.1K is not bad at all for him. And then obviously you have value here on the Pelican side, who they have actually been playing pretty decent on the road. But I think at home, they could take it to a whole nother level. Larry Nance, obviously, it can be your Joval pivot. And then Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall would be next in play for me. Those guys in the high 3Ks are, they give you upside, right? And that's just what you're hoping, for when it comes to a value perspective. And also if you fade Joval, digging into a guy more like Najee Marshall who can help in those small ball lineups, I think is totally in place. So I think you have a lot of options here on the Pelican side. And in this game overall, I think you'll want at least one piece from both sides potentially. And so I like this spot a lot for DFS.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for DFS. I mean, Ingram's definitely struggled with the Dort matchup on the other side. So although I like the price tag on Ingram a lot, he's shooting guard eligible. You don't have Zion. Like, I think Ingram looks like a very good play. I like Ingram a lot, don't get me wrong, but he's definitely struggled with the matchup against Dort. So I think if Dort wasn't there and Zion was out and you have
The
7-2,
torture chamber.
he'd be one of the first guys in my lineup if there was no Lou Dort in the equation. But Dort's done a really good job defensively on him, but he's going to be coming back home. There's no Zion, 7.2K, like we were paying, 1K more than this for him pretty recently. So I like the price tag a lot. Him and McCollum both look good. Murphy looks good. I'm with you. Herb's not the most, potent DFS producer on a point per minute basis, but he's going to be out there a ton. I mean, I think that the game plan is the Pels are going to play a little bit smaller today. Just Jovel getting his has not worked. We saw in the regular season, Jovel averaged about 17 minutes per game against the Thunder. Like it's not an effective formula for winning. It's not. So it doesn't really matter if Jovel, because if Jovel played 30 minutes a game, he'd probably average like 25 and 13 this series. Like would just absolutely eat against Chet. But That's what they're just playing into OKC's hand if they keep him out there. So I think Jovel started off so well in game one, they had to give it a try, and game one was close. But after getting rolled this last game, I think it's much more like a Larry Nance spot. I think we're going to see more like Nance, Marshall, Herb, even potentially like playing the five. I think OKC is just going to go small, and I think we see like low 20s in minutes for Jovel, or even high teens. I'm completely off Jovel at this price.
Yeah, I mean
So
that would make Joval a nice fade for sure because I'm seeing SWH has Joval ownership. I'm seeing around like 20%. I think that can rise obviously in single entry as well. So just keep that in mind. I ran 150 lineups with my projections before we hopped on, and he's popping in 43% of lineups. So I think that 20% has an opportunity to climb. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if you think that's the case, like the way Bobby is game scripting it out, then I think he's a bad play for sure. Um, I just tend to think they're going home. They played game one really close. They can kind of toss game two out of the door. I think they'll give him one more shot, and maybe that's just a bad take. But obviously, I think game one. I was saying in the Discord, like I think you'll need at least one of Joe Val or Larry Nance, and that came true because Joe Val smashed, right? So I think it'll probably be the case here as well, where I think you'll need one of them for sure. And it's interesting because Wendell Carter Jr. is in that 4.3K tag on DK, and Larry Nance is just priced just a little cheaper.
mhm.
So in a way, unless you play them both at your center and util spot, Larry Nance could definitely serve as like a lower owned pivot to Wendell Carter Jr. And if you told me Larry Nance outscored Wendell Carter Jr. coming off the bench, I would not be surprised at all today. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, Jovel's been. If you tell me Jovel's playing 30 minutes for sure, like I think he smashes. They've lost the last two games, and they didn't want to go to Jovel in the regular season. I don't know. I think that they're going to try and find some small ball stuff, but it's definitely a little bit scary of a fade just with how well he's done against Chet at least.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, cool. We'll go to the Celtics and Heat. Miami is 9.5 point dogs at home, 204.5 total in this one. Obviously, Jimmy and Terry Rozier are going to be out for the Heat. Heat had a big game against the Celtics, took game two. We'll start with the Celtics. If we're going to mention frauds, this team's definitely a frauds in the week East. What are your thoughts on the fraudulent Celtics, Gluck?
Yeah, this is everyone was like pinning this in for a sweep, but I think Miami like kind of found a little like weakness that they can expose potentially. I'm not saying that they'll shoot 54% from three again, but I think the game plan is clear. It's basically what Miami wants to do is spread the floor, pull KP out of the paint, and chuck threes. I mean, I was rewatching the game over, and basically everyone on the Heat were on the outside of the 3-point line except Bam, and he was just running pick and rolls with Hero. And they were just running pick and roll, and just kicking it out to the open guys. I think a lot of the coverages from Boston were blown. Like you'd have Jaylen Brown in the paint, he would come to help and then leave a wide open 3-point shooter. So I think today Boston stays more at home, but I think the recipe for success for Miami is pretty apparent. With that being said, I think Boston bounces back here. I know that they're going to be going into Miami on the road, but it's Boston's just been so good all year, and they generally have these lapses where they play down to their competition and then they bounce back and win. So from a DFS perspective, I think this is my least favorite game on the slate. Obviously, if you think it plays close, Jason Tatum should really easily be able to smash his tag. He'd be my favorite play on Boston, followed by Jaylen Brown and then Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, you could play guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday for kind of like value fillerish type of plays, but I think I prefer Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown more. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to go too crazy on this game personally. I think the contrarian route is to go crazy on it, but I think Boston handles business here and bounces back, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really have a ton else to add to it. Like I mainly just want to play the five starters for the Celtics. I think that they bounce back and win this one. I'd rank it Tatum, White, Brown, Porzingis, Holiday. But I mean, they're all viable at these price tags. I just don't want to go crazy with the Celtics. I think that Horford's actually kind of interesting from an MME perspective at 4.7K. No one's going to play him. I think he's kind of interesting, actually. But Tatum at 9.2, the price tag's nice. I mainly just want to play Tatum and kind of move on from the Celtics.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all, for sure.
All right, cool. We'll move to the Miami side. Boston side, pretty straightforward. Miami side, I feel like it's going to be fairly straightforward as well. What are your thoughts on the Heat side of things, Clock?
Yeah, like I said, I think it really depends how you script it out. If you think Miami wins and follows that kind of, is able to shoot the three as effectively, I think Tyler Hero is a great play. Same with Bam Adebayo. Jaime Jaquez is kind of like a better Herb Jones kind of when it comes to not like player prototype, but like from a DFS perspective, because they've been kind of priced in the 5K range, and you can kind of just plug and play them because they're going to play 30 plus minutes, and then just hope you get some fantasy output from them. So I think those three would be my favorite plays, and I would rank it probably Hero, Bam, and then Jaime Jaquez. I'm seeing some ownership on Haywood Highsmith, and he's a guy we've been kind of playing here and there as well. 3.8K feels like the lowest he's been all series, and he is a guy. I feel like 2 years ago we were saying like we would never play Haywood Highsmith, but it feels like this year he's been kind of more a high fantasy point per minute producer. So I don't mind him as value. He does project to be like 20-ish% owned, so he will be chalky value, which is something to keep in mind. Obviously, I also think DeLon Wright is a Q tag as well, so that's something to monitor. I just think their rotation will probably condense if Wright were to miss, and that would just probably make Haywood Highsmith an even better play. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I don't want to get too crazy for this game. Bam, Hero, Jaquez, and then some Highsmith, especially if Wright is out. Nikola Jovic played amazing last game. He's a guy who can never get right. Like he either smashes or
if I hop on,
horrific.
he's gonna suck. If I fade, he's gonna go like 6 of 7 from 3.
Exactly. So I'm just gonna leave Jovic in my pool, kind of keep him around like the low 20s projection, and if he hits, and that's kind of how I'll approach it.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way with him as you. I mean, Bam and Hero are going to be the main drivers from a usage perspective, and I think the game stays relatively close, but the Celtics win. So those guys at single digit ownership are definitely interesting and in play. I think they're good contrarian plays. And I mean, guys like Duncan Robinson, Highsmith, Jovic, in theory, you think that they shoot a little bit better at home than on the road. I mean, obviously the Heat were on fire on the road last time because Spo's such a good coach and it just had such a great game plan. But I don't know. I think I probably rank those guys: Highsmith, Jovic, Duncan Robinson, and on a point per dollar basis. I like it. Bam and Hero. I think Hawkes is solid. But I like Caleb Martin. I mean, he smashed last year in the Eastern Conference Finals between these two teams. He's going to play a ton of minutes. He played like 36 last time out. He should play mid-30s in minutes again. He's under 5K. He's at home now, too. He's projected to be single-digit owned. I love me some Caleb Martin for the Heat. Caleb Martin's my favorite play on the Heat. But
you mean Caleb Jordan?
Caleb Curry. Michael
Caleb
Curry.
Caleb Jordan, whoever appears this game, yeah.
Yeah. Give me some Caleb Martin. I definitely love Caleb Martin. He's my favorite play on the Heat. Kevin Love should just play the backup minutes to Bam. So I don't know. I've got some interest in the Heat side of things, but to your point, I just don't see myself going crazy with this one. But there are some viable plays.
For sure.
All right, now let's get to my least favorite game on the slate, just from a breakdown perspective, because I think my Lakers season ends tonight. Denver's 3.5-point favorites on the road, 218.5 total. This game's going to look great from the DFS perspective. The Lakers will probably be up by like 12 at halftime, and then the Nuggets are going to win by 8 or something like that. But what are your thoughts on the Nuggets side, Clock?
I don't know if you can see that. It says Cancun on 3.
That's the first play he's drawn up all season.
Oh man, it's not
usually he just stands there with the clipboard.
Cancun on 3, baby.
Yeah, let me just like stand up with my hands in my pocket right now, like this is my best starving ham. LeBron, save us.
Yeah.
God,
so yeah, I mean, we have our first elimination game of the playoffs, so that's exciting. But I think like from a fantasy perspective, these two teams are always pretty easy for me. Denver side, you wanted me to break down the Denver side first, right?
Yeah, let's break down the Denver side first, and yeah, send Darvin Ham to Siberia, not Cancun.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, if you have the salary, Nikola Jokic, obviously MVP of the league, amazing play if you have the salary. Obviously, he's the priority for me. And then you can always pivot to Jamal Murray, who on these short playoff slates, his salary always fits a little better because you can kind of build a little more balance with him. So I don't think you can go wrong with either or. I know Jamal had a horrible start to last game. Well, it was game 2 actually. But I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with Jokic or Jamal Murray at all. And then obviously you can always use Aaron Gordon, MPJ as kind of like your filler mid-tier plays. I think I prefer Aaron Gordon over MPJ. I just think his like path to peripheral stats is better. I know MPJ is like a straight sharpshooter from 3, but Aaron Gordon, when you play him, he has that double upside. Like he can get you 20 and 10, where I think MPJ can get you the same, but I just think the odds of Aaron Gordon getting it are higher. So I'd give the slight edge to Gordon over MPJ. And then you mentioned it earlier where, on the road, spot up shooters, KCP. He's a guy that's been kind of sprinkling in here and there on playoff slates just because like he's going to play 30 plus minutes and he gives you kind of a source of value. I don't mind him, but I don't love it. I think I would rather take a shot at like a 3-point, like a low 3K guy, like a Haywood Highsmith or a Mo Wagner in the first game that can kind of get me some upside and then upgrade somewhere else rather than playing 4.6K for KCP. So Denver side, I think it's pretty easy for me. Obviously, Jokic and Murray as spend ups. And then Aaron Gordon and MPJ are kind of like your filler mid-tier type of plays that can fit any lineup. So I think you're going to have to like them here for sure, especially we'll talk about the Lakers side, but you think the Nuggets want to close them out here and, get some extra rest if they can. And the minutes should be fairly decent, especially on the Lakers side, which we'll touch on. So I like this game a lot when it comes to DFS, just because, it's elimination game, right? So I'd expect, higher minute ceilings from both sides here.
Yeah, highest total on the slate too. I'm with you. I love the Nuggets side. Jamal Murray is averaging like around 20, I think I thought 24, 25 shots a game. It's similar to Brunson, where Brunson had a big bounce back game. He was a core play for me last time out. I think that this is like Murray is not going to continue to shoot 37% from the field. So I think that, Murray's had a 50-point game, had some solid games this series, even while shooting terribly. I mean, not completely terribly considering he got the game winner, but just on a general field goal percentage basis, shooting like 37%. So love Jamal Murray, love MPJ. Aaron Gordon's been an absolute bully this series. He's good at his price tag. Jokic at 11-2 is just, I think that's too cheap for Jokic on a playoff slate. So, I mean, I play as many as 3 out of 4 of the Nuggets starters. Like, I think all 4 of those guys look fantastic. I think I could see all of them having a big game, but I'd rank them Murray, Jokic, MPJ, Gordon, but on a point per dollar basis. But I love all 4 of those guys. KCP, like more at home, but I think that he's still a viable option. And Brown and Watson are going to be the 2 main guys off of the bench. They're going to be low owned. I don't think they're crazy to mix in from an MME perspective. I think either of those guys can put up a decent score, picking up some stocks. They're just super high energy guys and just good overall basketball players. So I think those guys are at least worth keeping in the pool, but it's mainly those main 4 starters that I mentioned. They all look just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm with you. Denver's always pretty easy for me.
Yeah. All right, we'll break down the Lakers side. I think the Lakers side is fairly straightforward. I mean, the D'Lo stuff makes it a little bit more complicated, but what are your thoughts on the Lakers side?
Yeah, you touched on it. Like, I wanted to ask you, like, what odds would you give it that they bench D'Lo and start someone like a Dinwiddie or Gabe Vincent? Because obviously, I'm saying hypothetically, that would change the slate. But the difficult part is that this game is the last game of the slate, so it's like you'll have to be preparing for it. And the odds of you having a 3K guy in this late game is really slim, I would say. Like, I don't think there's any 3K guys from Denver I'd want to play. And then obviously, if you expect the starting lineup change in LA, Gabe Vincent's 3.1K on DK, Spencer Dinwiddie's 3.4K. So if you don't plan for it, I don't think there's any way you would, be able to pivot onto these guys unless you have multiple pieces. And either way, like, I still think overall it's something you have to plan for. So I'm curious on your thoughts on what are the odds you think it changes.
I
If
think there's pretty
not,
much a
like
zero. I think there's pretty much
0%.
zero. That I don't think that they're going to bench D'Lo to start the game. I think if it's just going to be one of the things where if he's hot, they'll keep him in. If he's shoot like he shot in game 2, they'll keep him in. If he's shooting terribly, I think like I could see him benching him at halftime. I could see him not starting the second half, but it's all going to be about how D'Lo starts. Like if he starts terribly, then he's going to play like 20 minutes again.
Yeah. I mean, it's clear to me that he has to play well in order for LA to do well. I think AD and LeBron can only do so much, right? Like LeBron's age, I mean, as good as he's been and still is, it's like, what more can he do? AD, it feels like he's playing as well as he can, as well, playing as many minutes as he can as well. You saw D'Lo put up, 37 fantasy in game 2, and that was their closest game. Not by coincidence. They only lost by 2 off that Jamal Murray buzzer beater. So I don't know. It's tough. I tend to agree with you. I think D'Lo gets the start and they see how he goes. Maybe it's more of a Galaxy brain take or like a showdown take, but sprinkling in a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie or Gabe Vincent probably seems like a good idea in large field, especially just because like they cannot afford another game where D'Lo gets zero points, right? Like they have to figure something out. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's like I don't know what other adjustments they can have, right? It's just like Spencer Dinwiddie's not a defensive stopper. Gabe Vincent is, but like he's been injured the whole year and hasn't really played that much. So I'm with you there. But on the Lakers side, it's similar to me to Denver, where it's like AD and LeBron are definitely the spend ups that you want to focus in on, similar to Jokic and Jamal Murray. And then you have 2 mid-tier guys, in Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, where you can fit into basically any build. Austin Reeves looks like the chalk, and rightfully so, because between him and D'Lo, he's definitely the more consistent one, and he's cheaper. So that's something to keep in mind. Right now, D'Lo is projecting for no ownership, which is really, really interesting. Obviously, I think if you think LA is able to extend the series, then I think D'Lo is a fantastic play. I know we just talked about him potentially getting benched and stuff like that, but just looking at the pure ownership here, D'Lo has to be one of the better tournament plays, especially if you think LA wins. So those 4 would probably be my favorite plays. And then I'm interested on your take on Rui, because I have him at a 21 projection right now, and he's hitting like 50% of my builds. Obviously, this is like with no like min uniques or anything like that, but he is a guy that has not been playing well at all. He gets the minutes, but just does a little bit of exercising out there, it seems, so far in this series. So curious your thoughts on Rui Hachimura. And then when it comes, the rest of them, I think those 5 would be my main focuses on LA: AD, LeBron, Reeves, Russell, and Rui. But like I said, I have my concerns about Rui and then D'Lo as well, although I think he's a great tournament play.
Yeah. So I think LeBron, AD, and Reeves are clearly the best 3 plays for the Lakers. I think all 3 of them look great. I'm with you on D'Lo. The ceiling, if he gets hot from 3, especially at 6,300, is very high. I think I'm seeing in general like 2 to 3% projected ownership, which again, it's 4-game slate. D'Lo can get hot from 3, obviously, and I think he needs to be shooting well for them to win. I mean, you see what this Lakers offense looks like when they don't have anyone going besides AD and LeBron. Like, it's so easy for the Nuggets to just close the gap and go on a run by just like guarding those 2 guys, and just everyone else is kind of just standing around watching them. And I think that's partly been why AD and LeBron have been like tired down the stretch too. So I mean, they need someone else to be scoring. So I don't know. I think at that ownership, if he was high owned, I would absolutely be off of D'Lo. But at 2%, I think he's a very interesting tournament play. I don't have the cojones to do it on a single entry team, but I think it's very easy to get over the field on D'Lo in 20 max or MME. So I think D'Lo's definitely interesting. And with Rui, I thought Rui was going to bounce back last game. I'm kind of torn on him. I'm hoping. I mean, he's still gonna be pretty popular, so I tend to be off Rui at the ownership. Like, I just wonder a little bit if he just has like tired legs from trying to guard Jokic, and that's impacting his jumper because he's shooting terribly and he's not shooting super high volume. I like him more at home, but just I think he's got to have just tired legs trying to guard Jokic. So if he's gonna be 25% owned again, I'm not in love with that from an ownership perspective. Last couple thoughts on the Lakers. I think that Torian Prince is at least, he hasn't been afraid to shoot at times. He's had a couple shots that I wish he was a little bit more hesitant to shoot, but I think Prince is an okay unowned value. And between Dinwiddie and Gabe, like if D'Lo is terrible again, I think those two guys both benefit. But I definitely prefer Vincent to Dinwiddie. I just think he's just going to do more to help them win and earn those minutes. And he's been there in the playoffs, but neither of these guys are getting up very many shots while they're out there. So while I think that there's paths to them playing like mid-20s in minutes, which is interesting at that price tag, just the usage is not there. So I'm not super excited about either of them. I think they're better showdown plays than main slate plays.
Yeah, and one guy, that we forgot to mention, I see his name in the chat. Christian Wood is questionable to play. Help is on the way, baby. If Christian Wood makes his return, #help is on the way.
I will personally book his flight back to Dallas for you. You guys can have him back.
No, but from a rotations perspective, I do think if he plays, he could take away from Rui in a way. I don't know. Who knows what Ham's going to do?
If Christian Wood plays, then just slam Jokic in every single lineup. If we're gonna have Christian Wood guarding Jokic, that's barbecue chicken.
How far we've come.
Before we wrap, I forgot to mention that Reggie Jackson's questionable. If Reggie can't suit up, Christian Brown should essentially be the backup point guard. And I think Christian Brown looks definitely interesting from a DFS perspective if Reggie's out, but I think he plays, and I don't think that we get the news till later in the day, but it's at least worth noting.
Yeah, I saw that, and I looked at the rotation, and it's just like, would Christian Brown play a little more? Like, looking at last game, it doesn't look like it. Like, MPJ played the entire fourth, and then Jamal Murray played the entire fourth. So I think, Aaron Gordon played 41 minutes, Jokic 39, Jamal Murray 40, KCP 35, MPJ 35. I think if Reggie misses, I think the rotation is just going to condense a little more for Denver, and obviously boost the outlook on all their main guys, right? So that's kind of the approach I would take. Like, just looking at last rotation, doesn't really seem like Reggie missed the entire fourth quarter, and then that just resulted in all MPJ and Jamal Murray minutes. So that's kind of how I'd approach it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just playing the backup minutes to Murray, to your point. So it's like 8-9 minutes are up for grabs. But I don't know. I mean, Big T's in the chat. He's the Nuggets guy. I just tend to think that they use Brown in the same type of role as Bruce Brown in previous years. I don't really see, like, because Gillespie's out. I mean, maybe Pickett does, but I think that's more of a blowout script. But that's just my take.
Oh, I'm curious how these showdown builds look, because I know for this matchup specifically, I know we're talking showdown now, but this matchup, I feel like a zero has been optimal multiple times. And based on the pricing, I know they priced the min price guys to 2K last slate. I haven't checked this slate to see how they priced it, but obviously if Big T is saying bookmark Pickett, like, he's probably going to be a min price play. I don't know if he's going to be 1K or 2K or not, but in a blowout versus a regular script game, he could be optimal with a zero just based on how the stud usage is going to go. And obviously in blowout, like, he comes in for the blowout, gets you 3 or 4 points. That's kind of reminds me of one of those classic RPS slates where, we ship all the money just because of that right there. So yeah.
Yeah, make sure you guys are in the Discord. We'll have showdown content. Big T will have his core. He'll be breaking down his Nuggets as they probably sweep my Lakers tonight. So that'll just about do it. Plays of the day. We give a quick play of the day. My play of the day is Caleb Martin. I love Caleb Martin as a mid-tier play on this slate. Glock, do you have a quick play of the day for the folks?
Let's see here. This is always tough for me on shorter slates. Going down the list. Let's see here.
Thought you might say J-Dub. So you had him as highest ranked OKC guy.
I like J-Dub for sure. What is he? He looks like chalk though, so I don't think I can give him.
Fair enough.
Funny enough, just looking at my projections and based on ownership, SGA is like the highest value score versus how much he's owned compared to the other studs. And, him being point guard only, I think it makes it a little tough on your builds.
I don't mind that.
Can't do it, man. That's against my brand. I can't make SGA my play of the day. I can't do it. Let me scroll down a little more.
If you need a little more time, we could post it in the NBA chat for the members.
You know what? I'll go Chet. I think this is a series for him. I'm gonna ride Mango's coattails, and I'll give Chet Holmgren because I think that OKC Pelicans game is gonna play real close. And looking at the ownership here, J-Dub is like projected high 20s, 30% owned. Chet is like $200 more expensive. I think he's a great pivot where you can get a little bit of lower ownership into a nice game environment. So Chet it is, and yeah, Mango's watching. So good thing I didn't plant SGA. Whew.
Man, gonna love the Chet play. So love it. So for myself, Glock, we're out of here. Core plays will be up here in a little bit. We'll have showdown content all throughout the day. So if you guys aren't members, sign up with RPS 15, get 15% off your first payment, get in the Discord and get all that premium content. So good luck today, guys.